Before we get started with today's episode, in case you're not on my mailing list, well, I have landed after 3 years in the liminal phase and a year's worth of conversations for the Courageous Pivot podcast. I have finally braved the calling of my heart and gone all in, full out in the creation of my art. I want to invite you to have a look. It's at meghantelpner.com/art. And there you will find a gallery of the tapestry weavings I've been working on for the last year. There are still a few available if you need a little warmth and color and vibrancy and joy on the walls of your home or office or school or wherever you have some wall space. Again, please go over to meghantelpner.com/art and check out the results of my courageous pivot. Now, let's get started with today's episode. We are back at the Courageous Pivot podcast, and I am your host, Meghan Telpner, and we have another exceptional episode today. I think they're all special. This one, I got goosebumps so many times in the span of this conversation. Cannot wait to share with you. Before I get too far ahead of myself in my own excitement, I want to please invite you to head over to courageouspivot.com and ensure that you are subscribed there. While you're there, you can also check out a few little freebies I have, including my brand new Heart Reset program. Totally free, no catch, just opt in. You'll get instant access. And in that program, you can access the full teachings inspired by the Heart Math Institute that help you tune into the whispers of your heart to help you follow your own courageous pivot nudges. So today on the show is Rachel Druckenmiller. Rachel was a culinary nutrition expert, or she was in the program back in 2015. She came to Toronto for our live urban retreat in 2016. And since then, I've watched some, over the last 10 years, miraculous unfolding of someone who was determined to follow. I mean, they weren't just whispers in her heart, but she screamed them, sung them loud and proud. Her official bio is this. For nearly 20 years, Rachel Druckenmiller has been helping leaders and their teams get unmuted and come alive at work and in the world. A TEDx speaker, she's been recognized by Forbes, Smart Meetings, and Workforce Magazine for her work helping leaders build confidence, clarity, and presence. She spent 13 years working at one of the largest employee benefit consulting firms in the US. And in our conversation and in her work there, we talk about how she basically created a one-of-a-kind job for herself that didn't exist before and may never exist again since she has moved on. She also, in that time, took the Culinary Nutrition Expert program and started applying those principles into the work she was doing there. Where is she today? Well, today, Rachel works with high-performing professionals who are capable and committed, yet often second-guess themselves or hesitate to speak up. Sound familiar? Her work helps leaders think more clearly, advocate for themselves more effectively, and lead with greater presence and impact. She's also, and this isn't really an also, but she's also a singer-songwriter, and you can find her music wherever you stream your music. Now, something I just want to point out before we move into the interview is that Rachel chose herself. And as you listen, you will hear time and again where she chose herself instead of just waiting for someone to come along and elevate her to what she wanted to be doing. She is powerful. She puts in the work and she experiences the results. And though she's had loads of challenges, for sure, her work is clear and it is working for her and for our world. I love this chat with Rachel. It could have gone on forever. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Rachel, welcome to the Courageous Pivot podcast. So excited to have you here.
I'm very excited for whatever we're going to end up talking about today.
I don't even know. I do know that we met when you joined my program.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2015, I want to say.
I joined in 2015, came out to see you in Toronto in 2016.
In 2016. You were such an exceptional student. Oh. Like seriously, that you became an avatar for every successive year. That we would be like, who's our Rachel? Because you would be like, you made our job so much easier because we'd be in the chat, like the live classes, and then we had our community group. And we're like, if we wait long enough, Rachel will have the best answer. And it's always better when students support each other. And then so every year we're like, oh, is that our Rachel this year? We'd like try and suss out the Rachel.
I had no idea. That's hilarious.
Of course you had no idea. We couldn't tell you that. We'd let you get to your head.
It's really funny.
So what were you doing? What was your life before culinary nutrition? Let's start there.
My life before, I was in a made-up job in the insurance industry. Because like, who voluntarily wants to work in insurance? I sure didn't. But out of college, I had a degree in psychology, and I grew up watching Oprah and listening to Tony Robbins and telling my parents when I was 14 that trans fats were bad for them. So that's kind of my life prior to all of this. And then I studied psychology and did some research in college around nutrition related things because it was just always this thing that kept calling to me. And then when I got out of school and I said, I'm definitely not working in insurance, sure enough, I ended up making up a job as the wellness coordinator at an employee benefits consulting firm, where I then worked for 13 years. So,
oh, you must have been really good at that.
Well, I had to make it up. So, I mean, I guess there was really no bar. There was no precedent. I got to make it up and iterate as I went. And part of my job was like, I'm going to teach cooking demos and you're going to pay me.
So you did that for 13 years. At what point in there did you become a culinary nutrition expert?
So I started in 2006 at that job, and I went through like a health coaching certification. I got my master's in health science in 2012, and then I went through a health coaching certification in 2013, and then I was like all on board with all this stuff. I don't even know how I found out about you, but thank goodness I did. Started a food blog in 2014, Rachel's Nourishing Kitchen, and then started your program in 2015.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. My poor husband, I was like, you cannot eat that until I take a photo.
Yeah, standard.
But I was going through my own healing journey of I had been sick a lot as a kid, and I had discovered that food was the thing that was going to help me get better, and I had to make it taste good. And you made it so fun. Like I looked forward to every lesson that I got to watch and every new thing I got to try and experiment with and recipes. And we found a lot of our favorites. And I started going out and teaching these cooking demonstrations probably around 2015, 2016. And had no idea how it was going to, in other interesting ways, prepare me for what I ended up doing next. But, I was doing that for 3 years. And then 2019 is when I left my job.
So you left your job, you left your role. Were they find anyone to replace you?
No.
You're irreplaceable.
They're like, who's this unicorn that does all these weird things that one person shouldn't do? They had somebody who did wellness stuff, and they like kept a wellness committee, but they didn't bring in. I was doing I had such a hodgepodge duct tape job anyway that like it would have been really. I didn't even have a job description, like
right.
So
you left of your own accord. You're like, this chapter is over.
Yeah, like you gave, I think, what was 8 weeks notice when you left your corporate job? Is that
what I remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. I gave 3 months notice, and I had no business plan. I left my job and I was like, I'm going to go speak full time. I'd been speaking at that point. Like I did my first keynote 2016.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So you are now like an acclaimed award-winning public speaker. You started doing keynotes without any of the things I think you're quote supposed to have to be booked for keynotes. Like you hadn't written a book.
No.
You hadn't made a documentary. You weren't from a political family. Like you didn't have these sort of benchmarks that you weren't an entertainer. I mean, you were in, the kitchen, but so what made you think you could go be a speaker? And 2, what did you want to talk about?
These are such fun questions. Well, here's the thing. A way that I have lived my life, kind of an unspoken rule I followed, is when I get asked to do something that in any way interests and intrigues me, I generally say yes to it, whether or not I'm qualified. So I got asked to speak for the very first time for money when I was 24 years old. And it was by a client of ours who was an adjunct professor in the human resources department at my alma mater, a small liberal arts school. And they had a unit on workplace wellness, and I was helping her company with their wellness programs. And she's like, Rachel, I can pay you $75 to come talk to my people about wellness. And I'm making $45,000 a year, maybe $40,000 a year. And I'm like, $75 is a dinner at Outback. Let's go. And I said yes. And then I made a presentation. I had no one telling me how to do any of this. I just sort of sensed what I should do, and drew from the learnings of all the people that I'd been following for years and my own experience. And I kept getting asked to do it more and more. And then I decided that, when we were running these wellness programs, I would introduce all these vendors of other people that were teaching workshops, and our clients would never hire them. And so I said to my boss, I was like, well, what if I just do that? What if I just start teaching workshops about how to get better sleep and the secrets to happiness and eating for energy? What if I start doing that? And they were like, okay. So they gave me a lot of latitude, a lot of leeway, but I also took a lot of initiative. I mean, I created opportunities for myself, and I just started getting in reps, and I was like building it as I was doing it. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd been to a lot of conferences. I'd watched a lot of TED Talks. I had a sense of what I liked, what I didn't like. And doing the cooking demonstrations gave me an opportunity to improvise, because when you're managing a hot plate and a blender and a food processor at the same time and teaching people why kale is good for them and how to make it not taste like dirt, you have to be just like in the moment.
Yeah.
And you have to expect that everything is just going to like burn or fall apart, and be willing to pivot and handle that in the moment. So I learned so much about building trust in myself to navigate a moment like that. And then for me, my first keynote came in 2016. I won an award the year before as the #1 health promotion professional in the United States from the Wellness Council of America, which was an award I applied for the day the application was due, that I thought I had no chance of winning. And then that same conference, I asked to give an acceptance speech. They were just going to bring me on stage and hand me a plaque.
That's really, so there's so much in here. And I think one of the things that's really critical to highlight is that you created the opportunities for yourself. I have done similarly, that you can't sit around and wait for the dream opportunity to land in your lap. I mean, you can, but you'll wait your whole life. And there's so much to just asking or telling what you're going to do. And when I get pitches, which, they don't come in as frequently, which is fine, but things like, I'd love for us to work together. Let's brainstorm some ideas. I'm like, now you're asking me to work for you. If you come in and you pitch yourself as a solution to a problem they didn't know you had, 99% of the time, if you're good, they're going to say yes, because you've just made their lives easier. You make them look better. And so that's really interesting that you were like, here's what I can do. And then you studied other speakers. Like, you didn't just go in there with cue cards and read them. Like, you nailed how you were going to present it. The other thing I want to mention, which is really funny, because I received an award in university, which they were going to just call me up to accept it. And I was like, no, I'm going to make myself like the valedictorian of this whole shenanigan. Like, this is the commencement for our whole faculty. I went up there, with my speech, I was like, this is my moment. And like that, I've never known someone else who did something like that.
You got to seize it. I mean, because people are so limited by what they've been told they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
In pretty much every area of their lives. And I grew up with my parents both being entrepreneurs. And so I just had a different view of reality. I had permission from the time I was very young to create my own reality. And so when they said, we're going to give you an award, in my mind, I'm like, I've attended this conference for 7 years. And I know that all of my peers and a bunch of thought leaders, 400 of them, are going to be in that room. I'm going to seize this opportunity. And I said, can I give a speech? 8 to 10 minutes. And they were like, yes. And I went up and I gave the speech. And granted, when I'm up there, I'm talking like this and my voice is like really high and I'm dancing around the stage and I'm like clearly really nervous and I'm not intentional about any movement that I'm doing. And like, you could tell that I was not grounded, but I did it. And at the end of that, the president of the company comes on stage and he said something like, that was amazing. We should have her speak at next year's conference. So on my flight home from San Diego to Baltimore, I wrote in the last page of my purple journal, I will speak at Walcoa next year. I did literally nothing other than write that down and put the intention out into the universe. And then 4 months later, I get a call from their VP, Rachel, we would like you to speak at next year's conference to be one of our keynotes. I had never keynoted anything. I had no training as a speaker. And they asked me to talk about nutrition, which, to be fair, at the time, I had not yet gone through your program. I was a health coach. I'd transformed my health and body and life through food. I was not a registered dietitian or a licensed nutritionist. I had no credential of any kind in healthcare. and I was going to talk in front of a bunch of wellness people
Yeah.
about nutrition. But they were like, we want you because of your story, because you're non-prescriptive, because you're going to say something different. And that taught me one of the most important lessons of my life, which is that an invitation is an indication of a qualification.
Invitation is an indication of a qualification.
Mm-hmm.
And then your commitment is to fulfill on it.
Yeah, you get invited. Someone thinks you're qualified. Like,
yeah.
One other person, great. Maybe you're the only person who thinks you're qualified. Like, put yourself out there and give it a shot.
Did you have any moments leading up to that was like, oh boy, what have I gotten myself into? I'm not qualified. Or are you as deluded as I am to think you belong everywhere?
Well, the thing I was most nervous about was basically memorizing a 60-minute speech in front of 400 people. I'd never been on a stage.
A whole speech.
I basically verbatim memorized 90% of it.
Do you have any kind of acting or theater background?
Literally none. I avoided anything that resembled that my whole life.
Okay. Because I could see you, there's that, I could see that. But okay, so you wrote a speech. What was your strategy for memorizing an hour-long speech?
Going over it over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, it was really, that was part of it. I have a kind of in some ways, a photographic memory. And so I would print off the notes pages of each slide of the PowerPoint, and then I would go through and I would highlight certain keywords. I rehearsed it. So I got brought in by another keynote speaker to go speak to his company. Yeah. And he's the one that gave me the feedback. He's like, Rachel, you dance. And I was like, say more. He goes, when you're speaking, you're moving and it's distracting and it tells the audience you're nervous. You got to plant when you're speaking.
When I was in advertising, we were all sent for public speaking, like a 3-day public speaking training. Wow. I had it in university also. We also learned it in nutrition school. But this 3-day thing, they filmed everything we did. And the most valuable part of that, which I still remember, was they made us watch ourselves back and fast forward. So you see your tics. So like some people were like on a boat, like just swing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, where in real time, it's much more subtle. Yeah. But when you even, you can do it yourself when you're practicing with like the whatever the setting is on your phone, the time lapse, and you can see your own tics. Like my shoulders would slowly like engulf my whole head. Like I would just sort of as the stress and the anxiety would build. But it's so interesting when you can get that feedback, because those are things that you can correct that really amplify your like, no matter what you're saying, how you deliver it is so powerful.
Yeah. And getting it filmed too. Cause I did have that. I had the wherewithal to know I should get this filmed, cause I had, and it was unpaid. I didn't get paid to do this. I mean, I had a corporate job. I didn't need to get paid, but it was, and I got off the stage and somebody came up to me and they were like, first of all, I booked a client that then paid me $30,000 the following year, which then was revenue to my company that they wouldn't have had. And then somebody came up to me, they were like, that was amazing. Have you ever thought about doing a TED Talk? And I was like, this is pretty good feedback for my first keynote. So I felt validated by the things people were saying and the response they gave. And when you're in a room of hundreds of people and you say something in the room, the entire room laughs, like, or you can feel the stillness, or you can see their tears. There is something about that experience that is so exhilarating, and like it just does something. It makes you feel so alive.
Yeah. So how long after this did you think, okay, I will quit my steady, reliable job and become a full-time freelance motivational speaker? Because that's sort of like, Rachel, you sure you're gonna go be a little Oprah?
Well, here's the funny thing about this timing. So that keynote was spring of 2016. I met you in person September 2016.
I was pregnant. I didn't know.
Oh my gosh. It was so fun. Like I had the best time there. And what I didn't put together and kind of till recently, I was thinking about having this conversation, is also in September 2016, I had a dream that I was drowning in my kitchen, filling up with water. I'm about to get pulled under when all of a sudden this door appears, and I open the door, all the water rushes out of the room, and I'm left standing in my kitchen, soaking wet, wondering like, what was that? So I wrote about it in my journal. I had a dream I was drowning. Anyway, moving on, and just continued whatever I was doing. And then I started having trouble with my memory. So at the time I was 32 and I'd be in conversation with people and it's like my brain would have like this glitch.
Mm-hmm.
And I would lose a word and I would be speaking to a group of people about the power of sleep. And I would literally draw a blank talking in front of 60 people and just have to say, oh, I forget what I was saying. Can someone remind me? And I was like, this is embarrassing and very scary. And I went to see my doctor about it, who is a functional medicine doctor. I'd trained all my doctors at that point. And he looked at me and he said, Rachel, maybe you're doing too much. And I was like, okay. Anyway, that's the wrong answer. And then I got really, really sick and was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus and was like super sick for a while. And that was like the beginning of the end. It was like that bottoming out experience I had of having my health. I lost my voice for a period of time. I'd never been sicker. But I was eating all the kale and doing all the things. And
when you lose your voice, that is the message. The number of times, and you never really know it at the time, but the moments in my own career where I lost my voice for 6, 8, 12 days, I was like, oh, really? Again, we do more work? Okay.
Here's your sign.
But that specifically, I think, universally is like, wake up.
Pay attention. Well, I was so deluded at the time. I had a cooking demonstration for a client that December. I had no voice at all. I should have rescheduled it. Okay. A normal person would have done this.
Yeah.
Nope. I wrote a script for my assistant and I said, this is what you're going to read. And I'm going to mime making chocolate avocado pudding because I can't say no to something and I have no boundaries.
Yeah. I went to do a talk in New York, which for, Canadian to get a talk in New York is a big deal. Yeah. And it was like a shared event with all these big, important people. And I'd lost my voice. And my mom came with me and Uber was super new still. Mm-hmm. So I'd called an Uber and this like extended SUV picked us up to take us to like Hugh Kitchen where the opening night event was. And I have my mom and I can't speak. And we get out of this giant chauffeured extended SUV and I have my mom speaking for me and me just like writing things on a notepad. What are we doing? Like, how obnoxious does it get? It didn't occur to me to cancel. Like, obviously not. And my voice came back just in time for my speech, but every so often it would sort of bark. Uh-huh. It would it would just bark. But, the things we look back on.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was a shift for me because that was the catalyst that made me realize, what the heck are you doing? Like, something is misaligned here. And then I started speaking about beating burnout and becoming your best self while I was dealing with burnout because I had to figure out how to do it on my own. Like, I think we are both highly agentic people. We're like, we're not going to be sidelined for long. We're going to figure this out. And I started speaking about it and people started responding to me because previous to that, I was not willing to be vulnerable and open and really deeply honest about things with people. Yeah. And I remember I saw a therapist that maybe like a year later, and I was telling her, I have all these issues with my voice and my throat my whole life. And she said, there's this belief that there's, certain emotions are stored in certain parts of the body, and the throat is where we store sadness. At which point, done, because that was one of the emotions I was just not allowed to have for most of my life. And it was this giant unlock. And that was like the beginning of the end of my corporate job.
Mm. And then how quickly were you able to really pick up enough clients and enough work with speaking?
Well, I started getting asked to speak. The interesting thing is sometimes you can have someone come into your life who asks you a question or gives you a perspective shift. And once you know it, you cannot unknow it.
Yeah, we call those trail angels.
So there we go. So my trail angel was somebody who came along and he had heard me speak at our like large corporate office to 300 of their clients and prospects. All the big wigs were there. In my mind, I'm like, this is my audition to get more corporate gigs within the company and get sent around the country to all our different offices. He asks me on the phone a couple of weeks later, he goes, what do you really want to do? I said, oh, that all the time. Like, I don't want to be a consultant. I want to speak. And he goes, how long do we have you? And I was like, what do you mean? How long do you have me? He goes, you don't need us to do what you want to do. How long do we have? I felt so exposed, but also it was like permission. And I said, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. And 11 months later, I gave my notice. And it's like he knew, and I had enough people nudging me that were like, Rachel, have you ever thought about going out on your own? I mean, and certain things didn't work out. Like sometimes things don't work out in our current situation because they're moving us toward a thing that we wouldn't do if things kept working out.
100%.
And that's what kept happening to me. I just kept hitting these roadblocks. And I was like, why isn't this working? Why aren't they letting me step into this corporate role with that salary? Why do they keep kicking the can down the road? What's going on here? And the reality was, I needed to wake up and pay attention to the fact that what was next for me was to go out and do my own thing. And so I had enough people that were booking me, not because of my company. They were like, we want you to speak. And I did the math in my head. I was like, oh, they don't want my company. They want me. They want my message. Interesting. And I had, I don't know, maybe a third of my corporate salary booked that fall from residuals from stuff that they were not going to take away from clients. And then I had stuff I'd booked myself. But I'll tell you, Meghan, like December of 2019, I'm looking at a giant tear pad at someone's living room in Dallas, Texas with a bunch of mentors. And I'm in tears because I have 2 gigs booked for all of 2020. My husband's a teacher. I'm the primary earner. I'm having to make up for what was a 6-figure corporate salary. And I'm like, what have I done? What have I done?
Yeah.
And Rex, one of my mentors, was like, I want you to make a list of all the people that you know, rate them A, B, and C, who could make an introduction, who could potentially book you, like go to coffee, go to lunch, call them, email them. And I got really scrappy and I did exactly what he said. And by March of 2020, I had booked 2/3 of what I had ended in my corporate salary in terms of speaking gigs for the year.
Right.
Just by being really scrappy.
You did, we'll get to what happened in March 2020 when all your speaking gigs were about to begin. You did something that I don't personally in my own world have seen anyone do, but you built this out on LinkedIn. Like, which is brilliant. Thanks. Rather than, and I hadn't been on LinkedIn for years, and I went onto it, and that's when I saw you. I think you'd invited me to be on your podcast, and I was like, a LinkedIn podcast, and then I like had to reactivate my LinkedIn account to see what this was, and I'm like, oh, this is where people are grown-ups on the internet. That's what LinkedIn is. This is cool. It's like people are like lost their mind, and then over on LinkedIn, they're like, and here I am as a professional, and this is what I'm doing. So was it someone who inspired you, a coach? What made you think to build your social network on LinkedIn instead of where everyone else was building something, dancing and pointing? I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. I joined LinkedIn in 2006 when I graduated from college. No one told me to do that. No one was talking about LinkedIn 20 years ago, but I joined, and then I started connecting with people that I would meet at conferences and events and clients. And I was posting content. I posted my first article on LinkedIn in 2015, and it went fairly viral at the time. It was something cool that my company had done. And then I started posting about, when we won awards and connecting with people and having conversations in the chat threads. And I was very active on it before. I mean, it's in the past, I'd say since maybe 2020 has really picked up in the past 2 to 3 years. And everyone's like, LinkedIn's cool. But for me, it was just this place where I felt like I could be more myself, because I'm not necessarily like, what's the coolest and trendiest and hippest thing? I've never been that person. And I felt like so uncool on like Instagram and any other social platform. But on LinkedIn, I felt like I could be smart and it wasn't weird, or I could share thought leadership and people received it. And I just started posting content regularly and I started building my following. And so by the time I left my corporate job, I had maybe 5,000 followers on there, which was like a pretty decent sized group. I'm at just over 40 now.
So you'd been building out this following on LinkedIn. Were you booking these people through LinkedIn? Like, is that how you were doing the outreach?
I wasn't quite booking business, but I was building a reputation. Like this is, this was 11 years ago. We weren't talking about personal branding on LinkedIn, but that's what I was building. And my company wasn't super excited about it because it was confusing in the marketplace that I had my own brand that was independent of theirs, basically.
Right.
But I didn't care because I knew that I owned that. And as much as I got slaps on the wrist, I was like, well, I'm going to keep sharing what I'm sharing. So
yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
So you hustled up all this business. Then March 2020 rolled around. And what happened to all of that business?
Oh, well, since my only source of revenue was in-person speaking engagements, and then, a global pandemic hit and the world shut down and everyone canceled all of said in-person speaking engagements, I had to pivot very quickly. And I had some clients, literally 80% of my business was gone that I had booked. A handful of clients were smart enough to say, hey, could you pivot to virtual?
Yeah.
Did I have any background in virtual training at the time? No. Did I very quickly figure out how to do this? Because I really had no other choice. I found this community called Exchange, and I joined and I learned how to do all the things with all the tech and the devices and create engaging experiences and use interactive tools. And I started applying those to what I was doing. I just started hosting webinars for free. I did literally anything I could. I spoke at things for free. It was like I was starting all over.
Yeah.
I just needed to get exposure, and I was not above anything. And I think it's an important lesson for people to recognize that sometimes that's the case.
And Christine Flynn, because she presented at that live thing you were at. And when I spoke to her, she talked about how she'd already been an executive chef at a top restaurant, but to make ends meet and cover childcare, she was washing dishes, like well into her chef career. And I think it's so important, especially because so many people got knocked down or knocked over or knocked to another country during those COVID years. No one was immune to the shift. The only difference is in how different people approached it, and recognizing that, sometimes you still have to be the one to change the light bulbs is going to make the difference in where you land.
Well, and it's also another lesson in saying yes for me. Again, we talked about at the very beginning of the conversation is you just say yes and then you figure it out.
Yeah.
I had a client reach out to me. I'd done an in-person event for them maybe a year or two earlier when I was still in my corporate job. And they said, Rachel, our people messaged me on LinkedIn. So she must've been following me on there.
Yeah.
Our people are really struggling with their mental and emotional health right now. Do you do virtual training? And like any good entrepreneur, I said, I sure do. Let's get on the phone and talk about it. And then I got off that call and I built out a 3-part virtual training course. And then I was like, this is my course. And then I just started peddling that to anybody they would
Yeah.
For any amount of money. I didn't care. I needed momentum and I needed reps. I did not care how much I was getting paid. I had no fee integrity. Like I wasn't necessarily charging the same at all the places. I just needed momentum. And sometimes when you're feeling stuck, you don't need to reach the biggest part of the outcome. You just need something to knock a domino over.
How did you handle that pricing discrepancy? Like actually, when someone said to you, how much is this course? You'd be like, what do you have? Or would you say, yeah, it's $1,000, but I can work with your budget? Like what was your line to be able to just take whatever anyone is willing to pay?
I have no idea. I think I was like, so I'm thinking, does this sound good? And they'd be like, yeah. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's my number. And then I started doing it more and I'm like, maybe I can bump that up by like $300 a session. And then I just started tinkering with it. And sometimes I would say, what's your budget? And then I learned the importance of relevance at that time in a big way, because a lot of speakers that had already established themselves on in-person platforms for years prior to me really struggled with the transition because they were used to relying on the pyrotechnics, basically, of being on a stage,
right?
A big stage where you could do all these things and be this larger than life thing. But when you are like this,
yeah,
it's so intimate. And if you are just relying on all of that, like you're not going to make this. And I could do this really effectively. This was natural for me to just feel like I was in conversation with people. And my area of expertise was employee engagement, workplace well-being, and resilience, because I spoke about it since the burnout bit, and helping people with their corporate culture. Like what were the things that every organization needed help with in the spring of 2020? I was immediately relevant and people were coming to me. They were like, hey, our people are struggling, multiple. Can you come and do a thing? And that's how I got traction.
Did you ever, this is totally a side thing, but I noticed this because I've been doing podcasting for a year now and I've noticed my own tics. And then Jen is like, this person said, 275 times in an hour. In speaking to you in live, I don't hear anything. Did you ever do training in your, elocution? Is that the word? To remove filler words, to vary your speech patterns for interest? Did you ever do any of that? Or is this just naturally how you speak all the time?
I think I say like a lot.
We'll find out. I'll let you know.
Track it. I'm more likely to say like when I get really excited, especially, but I did go through. So one of the other catalysts for leaving my corporate job was in the summer of 2018. I was at a conference, the same conference I got that award. I did my first keynote. I went back, even though I wasn't speaking at it. And I was talking to a friend and she knew I wanted to leave this job and do the speaking thing, but I didn't have the path for how to get there. I just felt kind of stuck. I had this vision of where I wanted to go. I had no idea how to get there. And she goes, that guy is a speaker. You should go talk to him. I was like, okay, let me go talk to this guy I don't know. And his name is Clay Aber, and he lives in Austin, Texas. And I told him I wanted to speak. And I said, if I could read a book about public speaking that would help me be better, what should I read? Which is a good question to ask somebody who's already where you want to be. And he said, Steal the Show by Michael Port. Never heard of it. Order it before I left the bar. He and his wife have this course called Heroic Public Speaking, where they teach people the art and science and improv and master classes and all this stuff. Vocal coaching. You should check it out. It's in New Jersey. I live in Baltimore. Those are very close to each other, less than 3 hours. So I go home and I get the book. I read it. I call the program. They tell me the cost, more than my master's degree. I basically laughed myself off the phone. I was like, that's not going to happen. And then, kind of by some just stroke of luck, I find out, oh, wait, they're doing an in-person event in Philadelphia. It's going to be 3 days long that I'm going to play hooky from work and go to and pay out of pocket to go to it. Another lesson learned, you have to be willing to invest in yourself and your growth. You're not always going to have someone who's going to do that for you. So I just sort of didn't ask for permission. I took a couple of days off work and I go to Philly and I am surrounded by 500 people. The power of community, the power of being in close proximity to people doing the thing you want to do. And I lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, improv coaches, vocal coaches, writing coaches, master classes, watching people on stage, building our story banks. And I'm coming alive. And then they do this altar call at the very end. And they're like, we only have 75 spots for 500 people. And here's the cost. And it's this 7-month program. First come, first served. My heart is beating out of my chest. I feel like I have to do. I don't know if you've ever had a moment like that where you just felt like your entire body was pulling you forward. You couldn't even stop yourself. So I called my husband and I said, do you trust me? Because I'm going to wipe out our savings account, pay for this program. And he was like, if you think it's what we need to do, I trust you. So my hands are shaking. I'm writing on this. Okay, transfer this from this account. Wait until this date before you put this money in here. I mean, very creative financially. But I signed up for it. I did the hard, brave, scary thing. And I go into this program and I work for 12 weeks with a writing coach, developing my script. And I realized the thing I wanted to talk about that I never talked about in my corporate job was this process of getting unmuted. I wanted to help people get unmuted and to express themselves and to come alive and to stop holding back and to stop silencing themselves. That's what I really wanted to talk about. And that was the first place where I got permission to introduce another part of myself, which was the Rachel who from the time she was itty bitty loved to sing. Those two versions of me had never met each other in front of anybody. And it was the first time I got to combine them. And that was, I mean, game over.
Yeah. I'm glad I asked that question. All right. So 2020, you're moving and shaking online. Had you started singing publicly at this point?
Yeah. So 2019, I had done a keynote, a 15-minute keynote. At the very end, I sang I did this audition, a story bit of a solo I did to audition for something in college for gospel choir. So I sang that bit. And then I closed it by singing part of Defying Gravity, because that's how I felt in that season. Just the lyrics of that song. And I just felt it in my soul. And I ended the keynote with singing part of that song in front of my coworkers.
Excuse me very much. Okay. You're like, mic dropped. We're done here.
Yeah.
And they're like, look who we have working in our insurance company.
Not for long.
And then you had an accident.
Did. Yeah.
That was 2021?
No, that was May of 2020. 7 weeks after the world shut down. I, was out for a run because we were get outside and move your bodies and meet your neighbors.
Yeah.
And Bill and I were running up a hill and there was an intersection that we approached and the pickup truck, the Chevy Silverado, was stopped in the right lane and the light was red and the cross signal was white. And there was absolutely nothing about that situation that said I shouldn't cross the street, except for the fact that the driver decided to turn right on red as I crossed in front of his truck. And I ended up in the middle of the intersection with several hours later in a trauma room at a hospital being diagnosed with a spinal fracture. And it was like, man, 2020 has been brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. It was rough.
And so I witnessed some of whatever you shared about it. Obviously, that's never like the full story.
Yeah.
So what did you do next? What was your healing? What was your mindset? How did you move forward?
Well, the hard thing is I was in a lawsuit for 3 years. So I couldn't talk
From the
about
accident.
from the accident.
Right.
So from basically May of 2020 until February of 2022, I couldn't talk publicly about my progress, which was very isolating.
Right.
And also, I wasn't seeing people either. So it's sort of like we all went into a cocoon and then we all came back out. And it's like, here we are. But I was in it. Like, I mean, it was like a gauntlet. And I was in a back brace for 2 months. I was no bending, lifting, or twisting. I was in physical therapy twice a week while trying to run a business. I would get on Zoom 48 hours after the accident. I was on Zoom giving a presentation about building hope and resilience in the midst of uncertainty in a back brace. And I realized very quickly that I probably should have canceled that. But once again, we don't learn our lesson. I didn't feel like I could stop working because I was the primary earner and I was already resurrecting a business that had basically just been decimated. And I didn't feel like I could stop.
Right.
And so I just worked through it, which was really hard. And I realized about 6 months in, I was explaining what was happening with a friend. And she goes, those are symptoms of PTSD, right? And I realized I needed to get some help. And so I found a somatic therapist who was an absolute just gift of a human, came into my life at exactly when I needed her, took me through a bunch of different exercises that really started to catalyze and facilitate some of my healing and make me realize, oh my gosh, this thing totally disempowered me. And I need to find a way to process what happened. And it was grueling. I still see her.
You see her in person or is it online?
In person. And so she's also a Rolfer. So I get like the myofascial release of Rolfing combined with the emotional release of psychotherapy, which is a super cool combination and very rare and unusual. And I just think of all the people that I've gotten to meet, my personal trainer who I connected with 3 years ago, who's helped me just completely change my body and rebuild trust in myself. Because it broke trust. Like when you're violated, I followed all the rules and I still got hurt.
Yeah.
It does something to you psychologically to cause you to not trust yourself or your environment.
Right.
And I needed to rebuild that and regain that to be able to kind of move through the next season of my life. So yeah, the accident was rough, but it also catalyzed some other things that brought me a tremendous amount of joy that I don't think would have happened if the accident hadn't happened.
Do you feel like you're fully recovered?
Well, I won't ever be fully recovered because some of the damage was cartilage damage, like to my ankle. I had cartilage damage from how I landed. So cartilage doesn't get blood flow. So that's going to be what it's going to be. I stopped running. I mean, there's certain things I do differently. Like I lift and do yoga and walk and spin.
Yeah.
I don't run anymore. I've had to modify certain things of how I do what I do. But, I would say, I mean, I'm stronger physically. Usually the bar for an injury like mine is let's just get you back to baseline and be functional and manage pain.
Right. Are you in pain still? Do you still have pain?
If I sleep on a mattress that's too soft, I mean, like there's a lot that I can control.
Yeah.
So, but generally speaking, I've worked so hard to rebuild my body with weightlifting that I'm physically stronger than I've ever been in my entire life. And I've just tried to control what I can in the midst of this.
Yeah.
To try to regain some semblance of strength and power.
And then when did your music get so big that you were in Times Square?
Well, it was wild because when the pandemic started, I was posting little videos on LinkedIn of me singing like Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Or I'd sing a video where I'd go on and do lean on me when you're not strong. And then people would book me. They'd be like, I saw your video of you singing lean on me on LinkedIn. Come speak at our leadership event. We're going to pay you $10,000. I was like, what? It's so bizarre. But people were encouraged by it. I was just doing it as an outlet for myself. And it really was bringing people joy. And I decided that, from the time I was very little, I loved singing, but I wouldn't do it in front of anybody. And when I was in this recovery from this accident, I couldn't move the way that I wanted to. I lost my freedom of movement and expression in my body that way. And I needed something that made me feel alive. And so I went back to music. Singing always made me feel alive. So I took virtual voice lessons for 1.5 years. And I think the important lesson in that is sometimes we do a thing because we have this big outcome that we expect is going to happen as a result of doing this thing. There's something that we're preparing for or working toward. And we forget that we can just do a thing because it brings us joy.
Oh my gosh. Yes. This is the theme of my moment right now.
And that's why I did it. Every Monday at 3:00, I got on with Mary Ellen and I would just sing stuff. And I had no other purpose or goal other than just finding connection to my own voice and my own body and my own joy. That was it. That was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And a year and a half after that, I'm still posting more stuff on LinkedIn. Now I'm posting like full songs of covers of other people's things. And a coach that I work with on LinkedIn said, Rachel, you should record music videos. I was like, of what? She goes, covers of other people's stuff. Maybe do one a month. I was like, that sounds like a lot. So I find this guy, Leroy, that I knew from church, who had a degree in music composition. He was in an a cappella group, very accomplished musician, composer, just started a music production company. And I'm like, Leroy, let's get together and hang out to record covers, obviously, because I had no background in songwriting. I didn't play any instruments and I can't even read music. So that was about the extent of what I was going to do, covers. And I go to my first session with him and he looks at me and he says, what do you want to write your first song about? Which felt like a totally ridiculous question to ask somebody who doesn't write songs. But again, an invitation is an indication of a qualification. He thinks I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was inspired by a documentary I'd watched the night before. And it prompted me to say, well, if I were to write a song, I want to write a song about being somebody. Because my whole life, I felt like I had to prove and earn my somebodyness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of other people feel that way, or they wonder if they're somebody, they wonder if they matter, they wonder if they're enough. This is a message for that person. And he sits down at the piano and he starts playing this melody. And I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful. What does it sound like? And I'm like, did you just make that up? Of course he did, because some people are just really frustratingly talented. And he said, find a melody line over it, which meant hum something and find, I didn't even know what that meant, but I just did it. I just leaned in and I said yes. And 5 months later, my very first song came out on Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, all the places. And I lost my ever loving mind. I mean, I didn't even know that I could do this.
Yeah.
But I did it. And then I released 2 other songs that year. And at one point I remembered what that coach had said, you should make a music video. So I took my third song, Light Bulbs, and I reached out to Leroy, who connected me to these guys that are videographers. And we went to some like abandoned warehouse that had some cool lights in it and a piano. And I brought 6 outfits and I said, tell me what to do. There was no rehearsal. We had a couple phone calls. There's no practice. And they were like, all right, look at the camera this time. They just guided me what to do. Yeah. And I just listened to them and I did the thing. And then 2 weeks later, I had a music video out and I was really excited about it, really proud of it. And then later that year, there's a friend of mine who's another speaker. His name is Matt Immersion. And he said, I have this opportunity. I'm connected to the billboards in Times Square. And for all of us speakers, if you want to have like basically a commercial for yourself, like your picture and your name up on the billboard, you can do it 15 seconds, 24 hours, every hour on the hour, it'll go up for 15 seconds. Very cool. I could have done that. But I thought, who cares about seeing my mug in the middle of Times Square? No one's walking around being like, I need a keynote speaker. So
there she is.
Hired for our next conference.
That's her for our next general annual meeting.
And I saw people posting, it was like their face and their name. And I was like, no offense, like who cares? And then I thought to myself, but what people might care about? People care about music. And this is a message about checking on the light bulbs, the bright lights who often burn out. And it's November, it's around the holidays. This song has meaning and purpose. I said, because I like making stuff up and creating my own opportunities, since I have 15 seconds, could it be a video? He's like, no one's ever asked that. I mean, I guess. Let me check.
Did you have to pay for this time? Were you paying for the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I paid for it. It was a donation to a charity.
Yeah.
So I was like, can I do it? And he's like, yeah, I need it in like 48 hours. So I messaged my video guy, said, I need you to cut this 4-minute music video into 15 seconds. And he cut it and I send it over. And I literally, all this came together in 4 days.
Yes.
I take the train. I'm like, I can't miss this moment because a lot of people had like a picture of someone else taking a picture of their billboard of just their face. And I was like, this is so lame. I live in Baltimore, which is 3 hours train ride from New York City. It was going to be up on a Saturday. My husband and I had just been in New York City the weekend before, literally the weekend before. We paid some obscene amount of money to take a round trip train trip up there. But I was like, I'm not missing this.
Yes.
So we get to Times Square. I have 3 or 4 friends that show up I didn't know were going to be there that showed up to support me in this moment.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
And one of them like rode his bike up from Brooklyn. I mean, it was so sweet. Chris Schember and Danny Goldberg just showed up, and I'm waiting and I know the time of when it's going to hit, and I turn around and I see it and I'm like, jumping up and down and losing my mind. And then we stayed around for the second round of it. And then I had to get a train back home the same day. We went up and back the same day. We're on a train for 6 hours because I had to fly to Nashville the next day for work. And it was this moment of like this little girl who literally sang in her room alone to her stuffed animals because she was so afraid of being judged and not being good enough, now has a billboard in Times Square of her music video of a song that she wrote at 40 years old.
That's unbelievable.
Like, it's just, and then more cool stuff has happened since then. I don't even know if you know this news. I'll share if you want, but
share the news.
The news is I was talking to a friend. So what I started to do is I've released 2 other songs, and I'm working on 3 more right now. Actually coming up to Canada, like Kingston area, to record with a friend, Peter Katz. I don't know if you know him.
No, but Kingston's not far from here. You have to fly into Toronto, don't you? Or you fly to Ottawa?
Ottawa.
Lame. Ottawa sucks. Just kidding.
But he's amazing. He's a Juno nominated singer-songwriter, amazing guy. And so anyway, I've worked on other songs. I still take weekly voice lessons because like you still have to do the consistency reps to build your skills, even once you've done the thing. You can't quit on that. And I was talking to Leroy and I said, Leroy, I'm still so nervous performing in front of people as a singer. How do I get less nervous performing in front of people? And he said, well, you get better at performing in front of people by performing in front of people.
Yeah.
I want there to be a different answer to that question.
Right? You mean like a different answer other than like, no, you don't actually have to do the work that you want to do to get better at doing the work you want to do. I'll just, buy my course and you will instantly be better.
That's the solution, obviously.
Always.
So I was like, I want a different answer. So I said, fine, I'm going to start doing open mic nights. So I committed to doing a monthly open mic night with my husband who plays guitar. He like learns my songs. We did some covers. So we've been doing this for 6 months now. We have another one tomorrow night. And I was talking to my friend Ryan in February about our goals for the year. And I said, well, I'm going to keep doing these monthly open mics, maybe twice a month. I'm going to release 4 songs this year, which is the most I've ever released in a year. And I said, I don't know, maybe eventually sing the national anthem at like a minor league baseball game or something. And then maybe eventually Camden Yards, which is where the Baltimore Orioles play, my home team. So he heard that. He's a former Major League Baseball player. So he heard that and he goes, well, I'm still connected in the minor league system. And if you want to get connected, I sort of dismissed it because I've sung our national anthem one time to a field of 200 people 3 years ago. That's the extent of it. So then sure enough, 2 months later, he sends me a text message and the subject line said, Orioles national anthem opportunity for Rachel. And I was like, what is this? And he goes, contact Nick. Nick's going to help you out. I was like, excuse me, but no. What is this? I didn't I can't breathe right now. And so I contact this guy. I go on my computer and I'm like, well, they're going to need to know if I can sing it. So I just open up a video and I just record myself singing the national anthem a cappella on my computer. And I send it over as a Dropbox link. And I'm like, oh, and by the way, my story is I got hit by a truck and I found my love of music at 38. And he gets back to me. Within 24 hours, I have an email in my inbox that says, we would love to invite you to sing the national anthem on Thursday, August 20th at the Orioles-Yankees game at 6:35 p.m. And I lost my mind. I couldn't contain any of this situation.
Yeah.
I was so excited, but also kind of terrified because I'm like, a Yankees game. There's probably going to be 30,000 people in the stadium at this thing. And to me, it was a lesson in one, saying your dreams out loud.
I wanted to amplify that note because everything you've done and said that seemed like, oh my God, how is this happening? But also you out loud, you wrote it in your journal and out loud, you asked for it. Like you said it.
I hedged it. I was like, but I mean, maybe eventually. And so it's like, be willing to share the maybe eventually dream. Even if you're not totally sure, just put it out there. Because if you there's a quote that I love from, I mean, it's been attributed to a bunch of different people, some version of it, but It's that most people die with their music locked up inside of them.
Mm. Yeah.
Most people do. Like, you have something to share, you lock it up.
Yeah. And I mean, I often, I mean, I say it to my son, I'll say it to anyone who will listen to me. My son sometimes listens to me, but the idea that like, be so careful about the seeds you plant.
Yeah.
Because both ways, like, say what you really want and mean it, and do not say what you do not want.
Yes.
Because, you know, the frequency is the frequency. What you put out there is out there, and it will come back if, you know, with your heart wide open and you're resonating. You know, our thoughts are powerful. Our words are even more powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like speaking life over yourself and your future, which is most people get really good at sort of speaking death over themselves and what's about to come. And I've gotten so much more mindful, even complaining. Like, even I read a book, Psycho-Cybernetics, and then we're reading a book called The Master Key System, and going through like this process of these weekly kind of meditations and focusing on, you know, I am, you know, happy, harmonious, and abundant. And really focusing on that, you know, what we focus on expands. You know all of this so deeply and so well. I spent a lot of my life bracing for things to go wrong, anticipating that something was going to fall apart, and assuming that something was wrong with me. Because for a lot of my life, it was, but I wonder the extent to which the fact that I carried those beliefs and thoughts and reinforced them constantly, how much that perpetuated my own suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the question, isn't it? It's that, you know, we create our own lives knowingly or unconsciously, but we are doing it. And obviously there's circumstances outside ourselves that are not within our control, but our role in the like our response, our reaction is wholly and completely our own responsibility.
Totally. And shifting the perspective of, I mean, the phrase now that I repeat as often as I can think to do it is, show me how good it can get.
Yeah.
Show me how good it can get. Something good happens and I'm like, oh, or I wake up in the morning, right? And before I start the day, I'm just like coming with expectation. Show me how good it can get.
Yeah. Yes. I continue to be delighted at every synchronicity, at every, like, oh my God, can you believe that just happened? That's amazing. Like, I continue, and Josh jokes with me. He's like, if you wished for a unicorn at this point, it would literally just fly by and come settle on your windowsill. And you know, these things aren't by accident. When I was starting out, it was like there was The Secret and the Law of Attraction, and there was, and the Celestine Prophecy was really big when I was like just getting into this world, and I didn't really understand it. But in my own case, it was that I was going to retire early, and it was just a knowing, and I had no idea how it was going to happen. And even as it was happening, I didn't notice it was happening until I was like, wait a second, it happened. And when you can speak what you want into the world and be honest with yourself, but what you really, really, really want, how unbelievable or seemingly impossible it is, you know, you start to gather the evidence, and then it's like, there's no limit.
It's like the phrase of, you know, everything, it starts to conspire in your favor.
And
that's what I mean, like, I'm going to be on the Jennifer Hudson show. You know, I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm really excited that it's going to. And I have a vision of performing my song Light Bulbs at a really like massive event with a children's choir in the background. We're raising money for some type of either mental health or suicide prevention charity, and or Jelly Roll sings my song.
And or
because I think he would love it. I think his message of, you know, I am not okay. His song is so aligned with this message of checking on the light bulbs, and his connection to and passion for mental health, I think, is so aligned with the message that I have in that song. And I think he would absolutely just destroy that song. And I want to see and hear it happen. And so I have no logical, rational reason to believe that that should happen. But there is a very real part of me that's like, oh, it's going to happen. I don't know when or how, but I'm really excited to watch it unfold, because I've declared it so many times and I'm going to keep declaring it and being bold about it. And it's like, you know, I think Oprah said one time something about it's sort of like the favoring the bold, right? It's like the world, like favoring the bold and the people that are courageous, that are willing to do the thing, that are willing to say the thing, that are willing to make the ask, that have this deluded belief that it's possible, but it's not even delusion. One of my friends said, the same friend who got me set up for this national anthem gig said, like, stop saying it's delusional. It's not delusional. Like you have a lot of evidence to show why this could happen. And so for me, it's like, you're not delusional, you're determined.
Yeah.
You're determined.
Yeah. And I've always followed the belief that our desires are not our own. And whether it comes from, whether it's a religious greater power or a universal or cosmic, whatever, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. But our desires are dropped in. We are the embodiment. Our soul is in this body to have the human experience of fulfilling the desires that only we can bring into this world to make the world a more joyful, healthy, vibrant, loving, unified place.
Yeah.
And so if your desire is to have this big name person sing your song because it will reach more people and have greater impact, that's a desire for greater love and peace and unity on our planet. And I believe when our desires are outside of our own ego, outside of our pocketbook, outside of the little, human things we think we need for fulfillment, and you're able to be that channel, that's when, the doors open where before there were only walls. And in Sanskrit, in sort of the yogic tradition, the bliss body is when you are embodied in that space, everything is possible.
Yeah.
And it's powerful beyond what we can imagine, because we can only imagine what has probably already happened or what someone else has already done.
Yes.
And the possibility is limitless.
It is. My tea bag, my yogi tea bag the other day, literally had a phrase in it that I've never seen. You repeat them. You're like, oh, a tree planted, whatever. You see the same things over and over again. For the first time ever on one of those tea bags on Sunday night, the phrase said, you are unlimited.
And there it is.
And I was like, that is how I feel. And then just this coming alive that's happened. And part of it, it's just been this coalescence of so many different things, of feeling stronger in my body and then feeling more confident, and then and surrounding myself intentionally with people who are also on this kind of upward trajectory, that are operating at a different level, that are not settling for status quo, that are not complaining, that are not waiting for things to happen, that are not talking about how everything's falling apart. But these are people who are future focused, who are optimistic, not head in the sand optimistic, but like they believe that the future can be better, and they are agents of change in their own life. And they are committed to making an impact, making a difference. And we become like the people we spend the most time with. And so I'm intentionally spending my time and my energy, my effort, investing in more people who are on a similar like life path as I am. And it's such an accelerator.
Yes, absolutely. I wish you lived closer. Am I going to have to come out to Kingston as your assistant or something? I mean, it's so amazing. And, maybe I've watched you, because like we connected when you were in the program, and then obviously when I met you in person. And I know why there was never another Rachel in any other years, because you are one of a kind. And not to say that other people can't carve their own path and make magic, but we all have our own to do. And there's so few. And what you've exemplified is how powerful it is to decide and plant your stake in the sand and be like, this is what I'm going to do. And you did this and built this career and this reputation in speaking and in music by doing it entirely the way that worked for you, where you didn't, have to write the book and do that whole thing. Like you didn't have to follow the map that most people think they need to follow to be a successful public speaker, to be a successful singer. You did it by following your heart. And that's what a courageous life is all about, is being willing to do just that. And it's both the simplest and scariest and wildest and most magical path to take.
It is. It makes you, again, it's like I was at a retreat earlier this year, and one of the questions we had to answer is, what do you want? Such a seemingly simple question, but can be so hard to answer. And I sat and I looked at the page for 3 minutes before I wrote down, I want to do things that make me feel alive with people who make me come alive.
Mm.
And that's what I want.
Yeah.
And if I'm following that path, then good things will continue to happen, because we are meant to feel alive.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, aliveness. And if it doesn't make me feel alive, I'm not particularly interested in it.
It's what our times require of us.
Yeah.
It's our obligation and commitment as humans on the planet in this time to be alive and be that beacon of light to help others wake up too, because it has been numbed. It's like there's this like narcotic layer on the minds of people of, you know, the idea that, you know, everything's, I was chatting on my way here with a culinary nutrition expert I ran into, and she was saying, you know, it's been tough and the work she's doing. I'm like, everyone thinks it's so tough. Yeah. And it is. And there's suffering. There's always been suffering. It's always been dire. And also we still have to get out and live with vibrancy. It's the only way to lift it up.
And there's so much good. It's like, if you can focus on what is good about your life and what is right in the world. I mean, looking outside right now, there's a beautiful magnolia tree, and like the leaves are just kind of blowing a little bit in the wind. And I see this beautiful peacock stained glass that's in my window. And I think about all the people in my life that I got to just even text this morning. Even when I'm having a day, I'll just, who could I reach out to today and be a bright spot for by sending them a video message or an audio message or a text. Just let them know that we have so much more ability to shape the day that we're going to have and how we feel than we give ourselves credit for. And sometimes we just have to pause and recognize that, what would it look like if I chose to take more responsibility for my own life?
Right? Beautifully said. I think we're good. I think you've hit it home.
Okay.
You in the ballpark. Where can everyone find you and follow you and hire you and all? You know, you're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you, Meghan. Online, so racheldruckenmiller.com is the best place to find me for all the things. You can find me wherever you stream music, on all the platforms and places. On Instagram at UnMuted Life, and YouTube. I mean, if you just search Rachel Druckenmiller on Google, you'll find all the things.
And we'll have all the links too.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
This is the best.
Thank you for listening through to the end. Did you love those moments where Rachel just drops in a little exceptionally wildly amazing singing? And I'm just like, I mean, I can't sing. So anyone who really can throw that down like it's nothing, I have so much admiration for that talent. I want to make sure you follow Rachel on Spotify and with her speaking work and her videos. She puts out so much inspiring, motivational, smart, and effective content into the world. Plus, obviously, hire her for your next big engagement. But go to courageouspivot.com, click on this episode, and you'll find links to all of Rachel's work. And while you're there, subscribe to thecourageouspivot.com. And finally, you'll want to grab that Heart Reset program for free over there. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Do me and Rachel a favor and text a link to this episode to 3 friends and say, you have to listen to this. I trust you'll find something of value in here, because I think it's true. They will. And I hope you did too. As always, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. And I want to wish you a beautiful rest of your day.